What is up, UCF fans? After what seems like an eternity, we are back on the UCF KNIGHTCAST. I am your host, season ticket holder Phil Nunziata, and after 23 days of not playing a game, let's just say it was worth the wait. The Knights trounced the Maryland Terrapins 38-10. We have that to talk about, a lot of schedule changes, and looking forward next week to the Memphis Tigers. We'll also shift gears, talk about some of the other schools in Florida, and a little bit about our boy Blake Bortles falling out in London in the NFL. All this and more on the KNIGHTCAST, which starts right now. After some of the toughest times that has hit our beloved Central Florida area in some time, I think I can say with confidence that people are finally starting to get their lives back in order and back to normal, whatever normal is for most of us. I thought about doing one of these over that break. Obviously, UCF didn't play, and frankly, I just thought there was more important things to do at the time than talk football. But now things are really getting back in order for us here in the Central Florida area. Prayers still go out to people in Miami and Puerto Rico and Houston that are still dealing with things. But as far as we're going, we were lucky and fortunate enough that we were able to bounce back relatively quickly. And after 23 days of no action, the UCF Knights travel to Maryland, undefeated Maryland, 2-0 at the time, and come out with a 38-10 win. Our first win against a Big Ten opponent since 2013 at Penn State. This game really it was pretty interesting. Really, it was a tale of two quarterbacks. Maryland's original quarterback, Taysom Hill, I believe that's how you pronounce his first name, last name definitely Hill, came out in the game. He was kind of the hero versus Texas. He brought them to that victory. He was definitely a scrambling quarterback, only completed 2 passes for 23 yards, was eventually knocked out of the game by, I believe, Juzinski. At some point he got wrapped up and then somebody else took him out. And then the quarterback that went in after that, and I'm going to butcher this, Max Buschlager, number 18 for Maryland Terrapins, comes in, and this guy is basically a statue. The Knights defense tee off on him all day. It was really the perfect storm. After 23 days of not being able to play, I think it was everything that this area needed to see them have such a big road win. Mackenzie Milton played pretty great, 18 of 30, 178 yards, 1 touchdown, no turnovers, almost had 100 yards on the day on the ground, and only 6 carries with 94 yards, due in large part to a 55-yard touchdown. 55-yard run. Really the biggest loss in this game was the news that came out later that Juwan Hamilton, who was carted off early in the game, will be lost for the whole season. So real quick, I'll take a quick minute to just say best of luck to healing Juwan Hamilton, and we'll see you next year. I put this on Twitter. I'll quote myself here that for someone like him, a step backwards like this is only going to lead to a huge step forward. So you're in our prayers as you embark on the journey to recovery, because we'll definitely need you back next year. What a strange game on offense, though. I mean, Taj McGowan gets in the end zone twice. Anytime Taj McGowan scores, it's definitely an anomaly. And for him to do it twice was just crazy. Obviously, he's not... Hamilton would have been in that spot. Obviously, he was able to get in the end zone there. It was 14-0. I think Maryland actually started the game by scoring 3, so it was 14-3. Let's talk a little bit about Mackenzie Milton's play. I was happy with what I saw here, because even when things weren't going perfectly, he wasn't getting everything that he wanted. He was being conservative enough not to give the ball away. I really see him maturing as a quarterback. I feel like he's starting to know what he is. He can make plays with his legs. He's only gonna make the throws he knows he can make. No turnovers on the drive. Really should have had 2 touchdowns. Poor Mike Cugliati got tackled by the turf monster at about the 5-yard line, or he would have walked into the end zone, which that play was then capped off by the second Taj McGowan touchdown. So really, we could say that he threw 2 touchdowns. Mackenzie Milton played very well in this game. A lot of guys handled the ball. Otis Anderson got into the game. Adrian Killens got in the end zone on the ground. They tried this new thing where they run sweeps with Traquan Smith. Didn't really work out, but it's a new wrinkle that people will now have to look out for. Jordan Akins led the team in receiving yards with 57 on 3 catches after catching a touchdown, red zone touchdown. They must have heard the first episode I did where I said he really needed to get involved more in the passing game, and he definitely has. Traquan Smith had some catches, had 4 catches, only 29 yards. Really, the offensive game was more compact. It was really just a game of defense, field position, and picking your spots. The interceptions we had there, we had 2 turnovers. We definitely won the turnover battle. Let me pull up those interceptions here. Kyle Gibson got the pick that made SportsCenter's top 10, where he ripped the ball away, and of course, what might be the easiest pick six in a career, newcomer Mike Hughes. I always call him Matt Hughes, UFC fighter. Mike Hughes with a pick six, 57 yards the other way to seal it. What does this mean? All I could think about with this game is this is a game that maybe a George O'Leary-led team would not have won. For those that have seen the clips of Scott Frost after the highlights, he had a pretty good speech about halftime on how to close out a game like this, and I'm gonna play that.
Knew a team once that had a lead like this at halftime a couple times last year. I don't think that team was mature enough to finish. This team is. Whatever we did in the first half, more of it, not less of it. Okay, let's go finish this thing. Let's go.
And I think that's the exact message that Scott Frost needed to put across this time. In years past, it's really been the bugaboo of UCF total. They'll play these big teams and they'll get these Power 5 schools anyway, and they'll have leads or they'll be right there in a game and they just won't have what it takes to either hold a lead or keep going in the second half. I think this is a big step forward for this team and this program that they, like he said in there, more of it, not less. They did not. They were not happy with their 14-3 lead. They kept on and they exploded. They played better in the second half than the first half. The first half was some situational things. They overcame Juwan Hamilton's injury, and they were, in fact, able to get the win. And I think this is a big victory for us after not playing for so long. We're also going to get into, in just a second, where the schedule is now, because things have definitely been shaken up. But as far as this one goes here, great win, and I'm excited to go home to play Memphis on Saturday. I'll be there. You should be, too. And we're just going to keep this going, and I think this is a team that really could have a special moment here. So let's do a little bit of know thy enemy here with these Memphis Tigers. Obviously, we talked a little bit about them when I thought we would play them immediately after FIU in a couple podcasts, or 2 podcasts ago, I guess at this point. The first game, they beat UL Monroe 37-29, not super impressive. Their big victory of the year, of course, they beat at the time 25-ranked UCLA 48-45, and that was really the peak so far, and at the time they would have been favored when we played them. They then came off of a win, but also another close win against a lackluster opponent. They beat Southern Illinois, which I'm almost certain is a Division II school, and they were able to beat them, but they only beat them 44-31. They gave up 31 points to a Division II school, and I know we've all had our share of those in the past. But they were, at this point now, we are 4.5-point favorites going into Saturday. ESPN Match Predictor has us a 76.5% chance of winning our home opener on at 7 o'clock on Saturday. Let's see, and that's been moved to, yes, the 30th. So that'll happen then. Actually, it's a 4-point favorite now. ESPN2, watch it. Actually, don't worry about where it is, because you should be there in the stands. It's an initiative that they're pushing out here. Sell out the Spectrum. We're going to see if we can do it. Fans' choice on what to wear. That poll's been on Facebook and Twitter. I've seen it a few other places. So I think within the next few days, we'll know the color that we should wear. But in all the polls that I've seen, the color black has been overwhelming favorite to win. So at this rate, it might turn into a blackout game. It's really hard to look at Memphis's stats and see really what kind of team we're working on here, because their stats are so bloated from the game they played against UCLA. Their quarterback Ferguson threw for just under 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. So that's where a bulk of his offensive production has come from. Their running back Henderson, 105 yards in that game too. So really, this is going to be a tale of what team is going to show up. Is it going to be the team that is only barely beat, not barely, but in less than impressive fashion, beating teams like Louisiana Monroe and a Southern Illinois squad, or is it going to be the team that can go into UCLA, a ranked UCLA, and beat them? So it's really going to be a testament to what Memphis Tigers team we are going to get here. And while we're on the topic of Memphis Tigers, for those who don't know, I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. So their kicker, Jake Elliott, signed with the Eagles in the past couple weeks, hit a 61-yarder to beat the Giants. So I owe Memphis for that. But the love affair is over after that. So as I'm sure a lot of you are well aware at this point, that the UCF original schedule for this year has gone through quite a bit of changes. The Memphis game, of course, luckily rescheduled at the cost of not playing Maine, which I totally understand because Memphis is a conference opponent that we need to play. Georgia Tech has been taken off the table, sadly, and at the moment, with those 2 games gone, we have replaced one with Division II school Austin Peay. A lot of people aren't really happy about this. But the way I look at it is, I mean, Maine wasn't going to be that competitive of a game. You always get one of these cupcake U schools. So I'm fine with it. I mean, the fact that they're able to find an opponent was pretty surprising to me. I don't know if last I heard, they are looking to add one more game so that we have the full 12-game schedule. The NCAA allows you to play 11 in these circumstances. I will be surprised to see if we, because I feel like if we add one, it's just going to be another lower-level school. So we'll have to see. But, I mean, Maine and Georgia Tech and all these schools were very conscious of the situation going on. They made all this very easy to do. So really, it's just a matter of getting things back to normal, as I said, as we are in our daily lives, everything. I mean, we're not the only school, obviously. Plenty of other Florida schools. Florida State has, just like us, only played 2 games. We're actually going to get into Florida State in a little bit with a guest I have coming on. But we're not the only school that have dealt with this. Some other teams have had games canceled, and Florida State, for example, I think their game against Miami was pushed back several weeks, similar to this Memphis game. So now that's what we're looking at. We're looking at an 11-game schedule. Maine, Georgia Tech out, Austin Peay in, and also to save the Memphis game. So it'll be interesting to see if we do, in fact, add another game down the line. But if that's not the case, I mean, 11 games isn't the worst scenario. At least we get our 6 home games that we expect. So other than that, it's just a matter of going into Memphis, making a statement, and try to be 3-0 for the first time since 2013. Because, you know, the more I look at this schedule, there's a lot of games. Memphis could be one of the tougher games left on the schedule. Obviously, South Florida at the end of the year will be huge. Navy's looking pretty good. They're 3-0. But teams like East Carolina and Cincinnati and SMU's looking all right, apparently, due to their record. UConn and Temple. There's a lot of winnable games here. I think this can really make for a good year. I was relatively optimistic going into this year. I knew there'd be those games that we should have won that we lose, and maybe a game or two that we should lose that we could win. But there's a lot of winnable games on the schedule. It's a very fair schedule for a team that, as we need to remember, is still in a reloading, rebuilding process with Scott Frost only in his second year. But I definitely see this as a positive, what we were able to work through. I mean, a lot of players, Scott Frost did a good job telling us about where his players was. Some went to be with family during the disaster. I think he said at one point 60% of the team was gone and only 40% was left on campus. So to get everyone back together, they went a whole week without practicing. To come together, it's really a big thing. I think, sadly, it will work if you're going to make this into a positive at all. It was a big team unity experience for everyone that I feel like this team is that much closer because of it. Mackenzie Milton looks like he's maturing. He knows what he is. He knows what he isn't. I know that there's throws he can make. There's definitely a little bit of a case of the drops on Saturday, which I guess you could chalk up to the lack of practice and just the chaotic nature of everything that's been going on with UCF. But I think you clean up some of those drops, and his stats look a little bit better, probably more yards. He obviously, as I mentioned earlier, with the turf monster getting Kubliati, could easily have another touchdown. So we'll see. Is this going to be a run-heavy team? How will the loss of Juwan Hamilton, really affect this run game? There are plenty of guys that are eager. Otis Anderson, Cordarian Richardson. There's plenty of guys that are eager to take up the mantle of the starting job or get more carries. Adrian Killen, of course, might start in this case. It might be Taj McGowan. I don't know how much you want to go to that well. There's only so much magic left in that guy. He's never someone I've seen as a game changer. He's just kind of been there. So we'll see who's going to start at running back. That'll be a big question mark going into this game. Everything else seems to be relatively intact. So we'll look forward to it on Saturday and see how things can go and if we can keep this run going. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to segue in some other things about college football just around the nation. And then we're going to get in a little NFL. So stick around for the rest of the Nightcast. All right, now I think we finally caught up on all the UCF Knights news and notes after a big gap in times of play. We're going to shift over to our northernly neighbors as far as college football goes and talk about the news going on in Tallahassee right now with the Florida State Seminoles. Not the best start imaginable, and definitely not the one that a lot of fans imagined. I'm now joined by a good friend of mine, Ryan Mock. He's been a lifetime Florida State Seminole fan, and it felt like a good time as any to bring him on, where it's not as good times going on right now in Tallahassee. But Ryan, thanks for being here.
Oh, nice to be here, man.
So, as I was saying, it seems pretty obvious that this was not the start of the season that you've expected. Me, on a previous episode, me and Sean had talked about the Alabama game, so we've covered that. The injury to Francois really started all this. First, let's just talk about him as a player, because we saw a lot of him last year. We really saw him kind of grow up throughout the course of the season. How important do you think Francois is? Is he the guy when he comes back next year?
I believe DeAndre Francois should be the starter when he comes back. He proved that last season. I mean, you look at all the games, all the hits he took, and he just kept bouncing back. And it seemed as the season went on, our offense really gelled. Early in the year, we weren't clicking on all cylinders, but as you can see through the season, he got the offense going in the right direction. So he should be the starter kind of like next year, and for this year, it really hurt because after a season under his belt and a young backfield with Cam Akers, he was going to be so crucial to that backfield. But losing him already really hurt. But we got to move on.
I really did see him, because I watched a good portion of him last year. I remember, the Ole Miss game, which I believe you went to.
Yeah, I was there.
His first touchdown, I'll never forget, he got, knocked out throwing the ball, and that was kind of his theme for a while. He had results going his way, but he was just getting creamed out there. And you kind of saw him get, mature as the year went on. And going into this year, I kind of saw him as the glue that was going to hold this relatively young offense together. And, without him, as it is possible that's why things have started to fall apart.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. I mean, he got hurt against Alabama. He wasn't playing a bad game, but it's just so hard to move on after that type of injury. Because
I don't think he played a bad half. That second half,
the second half, the whole team.
Definitely. It wasn't just him.
It was blocked punts. It was missed assignments. There was free blitzers coming in. The second half wasn't good, but we've seen in the first half against probably the best defense in the country what he did.
Mm-hmm.
He moved the ball. When they gave him time to throw, he will torch you. He's got a great arm. He was on time. But we're going to have to move forward with James Blackman now.
Yeah, I was just about to get to that. Obviously, you said, there's nothing to do but move forward now. And moving forward, of course, means putting true freshman quarterback James Blackman under center, which he got in there at the end of the Bama game. But it was only like a drive, not even anything you can dissect.
He didn't even throw a pass.
Right.
He just ran the ball, get out of there type situation.
So coming into this game against NC State, people, the negative thing is he's never played a game before, but some teams are able to do, and I feel like you did this a little bit. The positive is he's never played a game before. There's no tape on him. There's no film. The other team, in this case NC State, didn't know what to expect. And I watched luckily UCF's game was at 3:30, and this was at noon, so I actually got to sit back and watch this entire game. So they started it out, and I heard the announcer say this, and it made a lot of sense to me. They almost wanted to make it like practice. You just come out, you do 3-step drops. He hit guys. There was some drops. I don't feel like they helped him early on. He definitely had a rough start.
Yeah,
the first couple drives.
He started off slow the first couple drives. Didn't really look confident in his throws. Mm-hmm. They were short, which I'm sure Jimbo was trying to get him in the flow of the offense. Easy completions.
Yeah.
But he did look a little timid. The timing was obviously off. But as the game went on, I really seen him mature in his first game because his deep balls down the field were great.
Yeah.
Him and Auden Tate had a special connection going on.
Yeah, he had a monster day.
I was thoroughly surprised by, his bubble screen, flanker screen, and then all of a sudden, they started coming up to take those short passes away, and I was like, okay, what's going to happen when
all you can do is
go deep? You can't, they take that short crap away, what are you going to do? And he was hitting them in stride. I believe, was he 15 of 20 in the first half? So you can't knock that at all.
Yeah, I believe it was 15 and 20. I'm pulling it back up right now. But yeah, you got to say about his connection with Tate. He, as you said, a monster day, 9 catches, 138 yards, and a touchdown. He was definitely the security blanket for that game. And I do believe he had to leave that game. Have we heard anything since?
He's day-to-day as a slightly sprained shoulder.
Okay.
If he's going to miss any time, it'll only be 1 week, which is huge because he got hurt in the first drive of the second half when they hit on that deep ball to get him down to the 10-yard line.
Yeah, I think he landed on the ball.
He messed his shoulder up. It's not too serious, which is great because it
looked kind of rough.
They had a special connection going on.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And I think you could definitely see the timing of the offense and his confidence kind of went down when he went out of the game.
Which, I mean, makes sense. Like you said, they had this connection. If you complete 15 passes in the first half and 9 of them are to one guy, clearly you got something going. So really, the thing of it there is, he leaves the game. As you see, he kind of loses a little swagger that he's just starting to get. And we did mention the one touchdown he did throw, which to me, it didn't look like a throw that was worth making. He kind of floats it over the linebacker. It almost looked like it's like when a pitcher throws like a junk ball and like the guy could easily crush it. He just doesn't know the timing of it. I feel like this guy could have easily picked it off. It just came at such a weird way that it threw him off. It was a strange pass, but it worked.
I think it surprised the defender. He's like, wait, what? Is that ball right there? And
yeah,
like,
it's right over my head.
Couldn't react to it fast enough.
Yeah.
And he's seen 18 in the back of the end zone, and like we were saying, special connection. He felt good, and he floated it out there, and luckily for Florida State, it worked.
And I don't think we could fully talk about this game without, and at some point talking about the officials of this game. And we'll get that in just a second. The thing, when Tate left the game, I noticed he did try to make more plays with his feet. I think one of the big killers is when he had the really big run downfield and the ball was poked out. Was his knee down? You be the judge. It was a close play, so I won't really go with that either way. But to me, that was really when the air just kind of left the stadium.
Yeah, because we were gaining momentum. We were starting to come back, and you just felt like, okay, if Florida State gets this thing knotted up, the home fan, the defense will get fired up, and we'll be okay. And so I believe it was like a 3rd and 5. He rushes for 5 yards. He meets a linebacker right at the sticks. He put a beautiful spin move on.
Absolutely.
He's running. I'm thinking he might take it to the house. Defensive back hits him right as his knees coming down. It was a bang play. I can't damn the officials on that call because they originally called it a fumble. It was one of those. I don't know if there was undisputable evidence.
Yeah, I don't know that you should have called it a fumble if you wanted to look at. But a lot of times they do that because they have to review all turnovers. So they'd rather call it a fumble that way they can look at it. So in a way, I understand that. But to me, that one play symbolizes this whole game. You think you're getting something going, and then it just gets tripped up.
It was one of those 2 steps forward, 3 step back type situations all day for Florida State.
And overall, and obviously the final score 27-21. It's not often I say this for FSU, especially when they lose, because it's normally on like a heroic effort from somebody. You look at the few games they lost last year; it was big, big players coming up in really big moments. I don't know that the score indicates that this game was. It took them a while to get the score looked respectable. It probably was a little bit of a wider margin than the score suggests, just because of all the miscues. And the other part that got me was when NC State's quarterback, I had to pull his name back up. I know he's a transfer. Ryan Finley. Before the game, they were talking about, I think he's gone, it was 300-something attempts without an interception. And usually when they say that, that's
going to be an interception.
And there was an interception. There was a tip pass. It was a great call by the corner that was then called for, I don't know if it was holding or pass interference, but it reminded me of like the Deion Butler play in the Super Bowl where he is right there at the same time. And if you're not going to call it then, you don't call it now.
It was, I think we were, down 16-10 at the time.
Right.
It was a 6-point margin. Big 3rd down play, 3rd and 1. And
it would have been on your side of the field at that point.
Yep, and the officials gave him a 1st down. He was about 1.5 yards shy. They reviewed it. It's 3rd down. NC State runs a play action. Derwin James jumps the route beautifully. He times it up, tips it in the air, dives 5 yards.
Yeah.
Makes a perfect
Great play.
The crowd erupts. I'm going nuts. This is what we need. This is the spark we have to have. Let's go. And the yellow hanky came out, and it just was another one of those situations. I felt like I got punched in the gut 5 times in this game, where it's like, here we are, and it just never could keep going.
Yeah.
It's like the momentum would just get halted right in its tracks all day long. Either it's our fault, the officials' fault, just one of those days.
Yeah, and I do think with all of this, with the fumbling, with the slow start, with everything, I do see good things with this quarterback. It might not be the scenario you wanted to be in, but I see it there. There's something there with this guy, in my opinion.
He looks like he has plenty of confidence. I've seen he's hitting those deep throws, and a true freshman. He's not a redshirt. He's a true freshman, people.
Right.
And sometimes they look, to themselves. We've seen DeAndre Francois last year. He's not really a rah-rah guy.
I think this guy is.
This guy, he was kind of,
you saw after the deep balls, he's nodding
tight down the field,
nodding his head a little bit.
Boys.
Yeah, so he's definitely, If Francois isn't a rah-rah guy, I think this guy is.
And I think it's only going to get better from here. We've seen he can make all the throws. It's just, can he be smart, which he didn't turn the ball over through the air. He fumbled.
He did.
Kid made a great play on defense. I tip my cap. But I think there's plenty of potential for this kid. And going in, he was only a 3-star recruit. It's not like a big 5-star that we've been accustomed to coming in there. Like, this guy's got all the hype in the world.
Usually if you get a 5-star quarterback, even if it's not the case, you expect him to be able to pull you out of a situation
Absolutely.
like this.
I didn't know what to expect with this kid.
Definitely not.
But he showed me he can make all the throws. He's got a big arm on him.
Right. So towards the end of this game, actually after the game, there was one last piece of headline that when NC State was leaving it, and I understand that Florida State, it's kind of like Duke in basketball. No matter when they lose, it's a big deal for the team that beat them. There was my stats are messing up, so I can't pull up his name. But there was a player that spat on the Seminole Head logo.
Chubb, the defensive
Chubb,
end.
that was his name. Yeah, I couldn't think of it. And he was the guy that forced the fumble on Blackman.
Yep.
Do you really make anything of this? I mean, some people blew it out of proportion. Some people kind of shrugged it off.
I mean, it's not very classy to do.
Right.
But it's a kid. He's a younger kid. He's a college. He just played the game of his life because he was all over the field.
He really did.
You go into Tallahassee and you beat Florida State. I mean, I get it. The kid's excited. Should he have handled it better? Probably. I'm sure his coach will coach him up on it.
Right.
You know, you got to do better than that. I don't like it, but I'm not gonna sit here and damn the kid too bad for it. I'm sure he'll grow up as he gets, matures and goes to the next level.
I mean, I don't see this as the Baker Mayfield thing with Oklahoma, and he put the flag in the middle of the Ohio State O that happened last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. With UCF not playing, all these weeks have kind of blurred together.
I know, it's crazy.
It's hard to tell.
I was in the same
obviously.
boat.
But no, I think it's different than that. So I don't know. People made a thing of it. I just figured I'd bring up the how a Florida State fan feels about it. I mean, people physically spit on fields all the time. So maybe he was just walking off the field, and like who even knows? But people, it seemed to have quieted down. I don't think it's anything.
I mean, this is coming from the team that after we go on the road and beat a team that's higher ranked than us, or say we beat a rival like Florida or Miami, we take a chunk out of their field and bury it in our sod cemetery. So,
that's true.
So it's not like we don't really, mess with our opponent's fields either. So
yeah, so that's good that if you're gonna give it, you can take it back every once in a while. So I think we're both in agreement though that Blackman, he's not a finished product by any means, but he definitely has an upside that they're gonna need. The full potential of moving forward, starting next week with Wake Forest, who is undefeated right now. So where do you see this team going with Wake Forest?
I think we'll go in there, and obviously I'm confident, but I think we'll build on last week's performance, and I think it'll be a good win for Florida State. Wake Forest, I mean, you think of Wake Forest, you don't think of a juggernaut, but they're a 4-0 football team.
Mm-hmm.
They're an ACC football team. They're not bad. They have potential. I think Florida State will go in. I think Blackman will grow again, grow up even more this week, and we got to get it turned around. There's just too much talent. I think we'll come together, gel together, and get a good solid win on the road in Winston-Salem next week.
So yeah, that's definitely the most that you can hope for, because I cannot remember the last time Florida State's been 0-2.
0-2 for the first time since 1989, and one of those losses was the Southern Miss, and a guy named Brett Favre was the quarterback.
And they say he doesn't know his stuff.
But that year we did run the table after that, finished, I believe, 10-2, and we finished third in the country, beat Nebraska in the Fiesta Bowl. So hopefully,
FSU has really always been one of those schools. The saying always goes, the good teams, they don't rebuild, they reload. And Florida State, even from the coaching time when it came time to replace a once-in-a-lifetime coach like Bobby Bowden, they did the impossible. They were able to immediately jump into another national championship caliber coach. It took them, 2 years, 3 years?
Jimbo Fisher came in 2010, and we were holding the crystal ball in 2013.
So literally 3 years. So, I mean, Florida State's always been really good at that. I do think this is just bad circumstance. I think the talent is still there. I mean, this is not very different than the team that beat Michigan in an Orange Bowl less than a year ago. So, I mean, I know some people have moved on. Really, the biggest one, of course, Dalvin Cook, which, if we have some time, we can talk about where he is in the NFL right now. But, I do. Where do you see this team? This is definitely a hiccup that a team can either rise through and continue on the path of continued success that they've had going, or they can go the other way Where do you see this team going? What's the future this team need to do to keep its stock high?
Well, we're just going to have to go out there and we're going to have to start winning games. We got to take care of teams that we should take care of.
Mm-hmm.
First things first. But I want to get into our coaching staff a little bit.
All right.
Jimbo Fisher, a lot of people, and I think it's absolutely ludicrous, are saying, hey, maybe it's time to look elsewhere, which is absolutely,
I laugh at that.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. He has won 10 games every year since 2011. He just come off an Orange Bowl championship. He recruits top 5, top 10 in the country every single year. Mm-hmm. He restored us to national prominence. Our facilities are second to none. It's just a hiccup in the road. But the one thing I got to say about Jimbo, I hope he doesn't get stagnant with his coaching staff. He has Rick Trickett, our offensive line coach. He's been there since Jimbo took over the program in 2010. He's
father of Clint Trickett, former quarterback.
And he was actually there when Bobby, at the end of Bobby Bowden's reign, when Jimbo came, when he was offensive coordinator. And Florida State fans, let's be honest, our offensive line's not there. I mean, how many times, it doesn't matter who's quarterback, is looking for their mouthpiece after we try to throw the ball? They get creamed all the time. It's just not where it needs to be. So I hate to call for Trickett's job at offensive line coach. You got to consider it. And I think that's a huge problem with our offense right now, is there's no rhythm to it. It's just holding. It's a false start.
I think there's a lot of waiting for a big play.
Yeah,
with this team.
They're not on rhythm at all, and it has a lot to do with the offensive line.
Yeah.
So, and also I want to talk about the defensive coordinator and Charles Kelly. We see Florida State sometimes come out and look like gangbangers on defense. When they should, they have all that talent. But you'll see a game against an opponent that they should play good against. For NC State, for example, we knew we had a true freshman quarterback. It's our home opener. We knew that we had to play great on defense and help the kid out, and they get 27 points. Not good enough.
Right.
And there's just been too many times, like the Louisville game last year, it's just unacceptable. The North Carolina game, we had the lead last year with 20 seconds to go, and we let North Carolina go down the field and kick a field goal.
Right.
So is it Jimbo? It's not necessarily Jimbo Fisher that needs to go. Maybe his staff has gotten stagnant around him. Maybe we need new blood in there to kind of rejuvenate
on the staff itself
around Jimbo. Because as we know, Jimbo is a great offensive mind. He's one of the best recruiters in the country.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, when people talk about, is it time to move on from Jimbo, I laugh at that because, one, his accolades speak for themselves, and two, you're not at Mississippi State. This is no matter what, it's like when Penn State had their coaching vacancy. No matter what happens to that program, that is a top 5 coaching. That Florida State is Michigan, Ohio State. It's right there. There was not another team worth coaching that's more valuable of a job. That it's, to me, the job itself, when you strip away everything, it's better than Alabama. It's Alabama, but you're closer to the kids you want to recruit. Because Alabama wants Florida kids too.
Absolutely. You recruit your home state, you're going to win a lot of football games, which he has been able to do.
Right.
And that's why he's owned Florida and Miami recently, because he has out-recruited them.
Absolutely. And not that I'm not saying I believe in this, but I'll play devil's advocate here. It's almost like the Brady-Belichick debate. How much of his success should be denoted to Winston? Like, was Winston the reason for that hot start, or was he just one of the many players that made his first 3 years so well?
Jameis obviously was maybe the best player to ever step on the garnet and gold.
Yeah,
but
which is so crazy because he's only played for 2 years,
2 seasons.
So it's like a lightning strike. He's there and he's gone, and nobody knows what happened. And then you got another trophy in the locker room.
But I hear people say that, and I just got to disagree because we were getting better under EJ Manuel, and people forget in 2012. We won the Orange Bowl that year. We lost 2 games, and EJ had a couple hiccups. EJ Manuel,
that guy was a bum,
and he wasn't a good quarterback. And we won despite him.
Yes.
So, and you look at all the other players that are in the NFL. I'll bring up names, and you're like, wow, that's a lot. Xavier Rhodes from Minnesota, one of the best corners. You got Dalvin Cook for the Vikings as well. Kelvin Benjamin. I mean, the list goes on, and that's just to name a few. So it's more than just Jameis Winston. He's won 2 Orange Bowl championships without Jameis Winston there.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, I think it's an even split. If Francois didn't get hurt, and I'm not saying this even stops his ability to do this, Francois could be a slow-burning version of Jameis Winston. He didn't click right into that role, but he could, what is he, he's a junior this year, or he's a sophomore?
He was
this year?
a redshirt sophomore this year, and he might get a medical redshirt.
So
we
have
could
a few
have
more
him
years
for
to
2
build
more
on him.
seasons.
So I could easily see them getting up to that point. While we're on this topic, is on this show, I always like to end talking about the Knights that are in the pros and how they're doing. And since we're on this topic, let's go ahead and do it. Where have you seen? We're about we're 2 years and 3 games in Jameis Winston's career so far. Have you been excited for what you see? I mean, you're a Cowboys fan, but you do like the Bucs. You know, you enjoy watching the Bucs play. What have you thought of him in the NFL so far?
I think he's been great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw a stat the other day, and this might be a surprise. I don't know if you know this, but he's the only quarterback in NFL history to throw for 4,000 plus yards each of his first 2 seasons.
I did not know that.
We all know the talent Jameis Winston has.
Definitely.
And his maturity. I mean, what can we say about Jameis? Can you believe once upon a time people questioned his maturity? He's one of the model quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, I definitely saw him to be a very, like the way Blackman is now. I mean, like, I definitely could have seen him being a hothead, and he
Absolutely.
really has not been.
He's a great leader.
And maybe he, like, I'm sure Jimbo Fisher helped with that, but maybe just Tampa in general. Because they got veterans on that team.
Absolutely.
That I'm sure have helped, I'm not saying it would have happened anyway, but definitely sped up that process. So far, to me, I mean, I think he's been great. Obviously, there's no such thing as a perfect quarterback, so where do you see he needs to improve?
The turnovers. He's got to stop throwing the interception.
Mm-hmm.
The interception, Jameis is one of those kids, he thinks he can make every throw, which he almost can.
Yeah.
But it gets him in trouble.
It's because he
when the
can
check down,
make all the throws.
When the check down's there for 5 yards and live to see 2nd and 4 instead of throwing it, he just has to rein that in. And once he does, and it'll come in time, it's hard to believe this is only his third season.
Right.
Once he reins that in, he's going to be, I think, a top 5 elite quarterback. And he's knocking a door on it right now, in my opinion.
I do remember that, the first game he played was ironically against Marcus Mariota, which was, the other quarterback in that draft. And in that first game, pretty sure Tennessee, blew the doors off him. In that race, I think it's hard to say that Winston isn't winning the race of who's the better quarterback in that draft. I mean, Mariota's been good, but would you say, like, if you're just watching objectively, that he's been the better quarterback?
I would go with Jameis because I think Jameis has had to do more.
Yeah.
I think Marcus, he has a good running back. He has DeMarco Murray.
Mm-hmm.
He has a solid defense.
He doesn't really have the receivers, though. And that's, like, the one thing Winston does have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will give you that. But I think Jameis makes more plays, and I think he's had to have a better offense his first 2 seasons. Whereas Mariota has kind of been more of a system-type guy.
Yeah, I can see that.
But nothing against Mariota. He's got all the potential, too.
There's plenty of, I'd say, there's 32 teams in the league. I feel like 23 of them would love to have Mariota over the guy that they have.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap this, little Noel segment up here, we talked about Winston, and now we'll talk about Dalvin Cook real quick, who's come on the NFL by storm. Played the Bucs, ironically. There's a segue for you. This past week, scored his first NFL touchdown in what was surprisingly a pretty big beatdown of the Bucs.
That at all.
Dalvin Cook got his first touchdown. He seems to be hitting the NFL level with no problems so far. What do you think about Dalvin Cook? Have you been happy with what you've seen of him?
He looks like the same guy. He really does. It doesn't look like the speed is too much for him. He's like he's hit the ground running, and he's still going. He broke a Minnesota rookie franchise
rushing record
in his first game against New Orleans. He put up almost 100 against Tampa and a touchdown. And it looks like Minnesota's offense is the Adrian Peterson type offense. They run it through him. And Dalvin Cook, I'm so proud of him. He's just a joy to watch.
61 carries, 288 yards, the one touchdown we talked about, averaging 4.7 yards per carry. This is a guy, when the Vikings drafted him, I was head scratch. If I'm going to be completely honest, I being an Eagles fan, the way that draft sat, it was Minnesota's pick, who had just signed former UCF running back Latavius Murray, the Saints, which had just signed Adrian Peterson, and then there sits my Eagles. And I'm sitting in my living room saying, we can get Dalvin Cook in this round, because I had no reason to believe either of those guys were in the market for a quarterback. And to be fair, I don't know running back, in the market for a running back. And to be fair, I don't know that the Vikings were, but it might have been one of those scenarios where he's too good of a guy to pass up.
You see Dalvin Cook sitting there, I got to have this guy on my team.
I don't know why it took that long.
It is the most absurd thing I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
How in the HELL hockey sticks did Dalvin Cook fall to the second round? He's the all-time leading rusher at Florida State University.
And there's a lot of guys he had to beat out for that.
He passed people like Warwick Dunn, Greg Jones, a lot of Greg Jones was a great running back before he blew his knee up. And
Jaguar fans would
he
know him
moved
as
to
a fullback.
and was a bone-crushing fullback for the Jaguars. Dalvin Cook bailed us out at so many holes.
Definitely.
Look at the Michigan game, 3rd and 20, you just hand it to him, you bust it off for 80.
Right.
I mean,
think he hasn't quite. He's obviously not quite on that level yet in the NFL, but that'll obviously take some time.
But
it'll take a while before you break him. I'm still waiting for that big 80-yarder because he hasn't had a chance to do that.
He'll get it.
But at the same time, he hasn't gotten that welcome to the NFL moment yet. No one's had him. Nobody's blown him up in the backfield.
No.
So it's going to happen on both ways. He's going to get as good. He's going to get as bad. But yeah, overall, definitely, and it has stifled Latavius Murray's ability to get in the game, which as Knight fans, you might be a little disappointed. But it's definitely something that it's definitely fun because the Vikings have not, even when they've been good, they started last year 5-0. They've not been a team that you wanted to sit and watch.
Right.
And even with I forget who the backup is that was just in this game. Was it Case Keenum?
Case Keenum.
Even with Case Keenum in the game this past week, the team was fun to watch because Dalvin Cook made it that way.
If they can get Latavius Murray in there, speaking for the Vikings, that could be one heck of a 1-2 punch if you can find a way to spread the carries.
Put them
out.
both in there.
Absolutely.
That's definitely what I was thinking too. And Latavius Murray even said before the year started when Cook was given the starting job, he wasn't bitter. He said the kid earned it, which is that shows the kind of guy that Latavius Murray is.
And that's another thing about Dalvin too, because you can have him a 2-back system out of the shotgun or whatever, and Dalvin's a very underrated pass blocker.
Yes,
God
definitely.
knows he had to pick up a lot of the free blitzers that our offensive line at Florida State was letting come through, or else we'd be down to our 9th string quarterback. But Dalvin's a heck of a pass blocker as well.
Yeah, we're gonna transfer here in a few minutes. I'm gonna bring Sean onto here, and we're gonna talk a little Jaguars and big day that Blake has. You want to stick around and talk a little Jags football?
I'll talk a little bit.
I
watched them beat them down, man.
All right, cool. All right, we'll be back in a few minutes with Sean, Ryan, and myself, and we're talking about Blake Bortles' big day in London. One go. All right, so a mere less than 24 hours after the Knights' victory in Maryland, the Orlando team's continued drubbing of Maryland teams continued as the Jaguars absolutely thrashed the Ravens in London, of all places. A big win for the Jags. Blake Bortles had a pretty good day. I have with me everyone's favorite Jags fan, Sean. He's back for another episode. Ryan's still hanging with us, talking some NFL. We'll start with you, Sean. How surprising was it to see the Jags, led by Blake Bortles, just totally run over the Ravens in London?
Woo! Man, I was not expecting this one at all. Holy. But I thought this game, I thought the score would have been the opposite, especially after the week before when we played Tennessee. We lost to them, I think it was like 33-17 or something like that.
And it wasn't even that close.
And no, the game, we got blown out by Tennessee. The offense played bad. The defense played okay. But then coming into this game playing Baltimore, they shut out the Bengals and Browns, which isn't impressive, but still good.
Still shut out.
And so this week, I thought their defense was going to destroy us, and I thought their defense was going to dominate, and the defense did dominate, but it was us. We absolutely murked them out there in London.
I believe the term is straight ghosted is something that the kids are saying now.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Ryan, you woke up early, you caught this game?
I watched it. It was complete ass-kicking from the word go.
Yeah. I mean, I woke up a little bit later, and I turned it on. It was already 13-0. And I'm looking at it, so I missed a few. I've gone back and seen it since. We'll get into the semantics of the game, but this might be, and you can correct me if you would know a better one. This has got to be Blake Bortles' best performance in a win, because I know he lit it up once against Tennessee. That was basically an arena football loss a year or two ago.
Yeah,
but real quick, we'll start with Blake Bortles. 20 of 31, 244, 4 touchdowns, no picks, averaging just under 8 yards per attempt. Is this not the best Blake Bortles we've seen?
He had a good game. This game, if I was to go back and say the best Blake Bortles game I ever saw, it was 2 years ago against Indianapolis at home. I think it was like week 15.
Mm-hmm.
We
I
drove
remember
the
that
Colts
game.
like 44-16 that day. I think that was probably Blake Bortles' best game in a win. Blake played solid. He threw the ball well. He didn't turn the ball over. The offensive line gave him plenty of time to throw. He didn't do anything that we've seen him do before, where when we lose games, when he gets reckless, he'll throw the ball and he'll throw picks or it'll get tipped off someone's hands. The overall team played a great game. Blake played solid. We ran the ball well, and the defense was absolutely dominant from the word go.
Yeah, I mean, this was a situation for me anyway that, like, because it reminded me more of the game in Houston where Blake got to be a quarterback. He didn't have to be a superhero. He got to pick and choose his spots. The defense was keeping the game right where they wanted it. The run game wasn't quite what it was in Houston or anything. Leonard Fournette had a decent day, did get another touchdown. The most, Corey Grant?
Yeah,
running
Corey
back.
Grant.
He led the team in rushing with 75 yards, large part due to they ran a fake punt for no reason, up by a huge margin, and he got 50 yards out of it.
Yeah.
So really, the run stats are a little skewed, but they didn't
when-
run the ball quite as well. So the passing game was definitely necessary for this to happen.
Yeah. Well, we did run the ball well. It's just running the ball wasn't exactly necessary because we had a couple turnovers. We forced a couple turnovers on Baltimore, and we had some short fields to work with also. So it was also one of those things where they didn't have to do that much, and the passing game was on fire this week. You know, we took it to the Ravens, and we put them in a bad spot, and we stepped on their throats, and we kept the throttle on the whole game.
Which has been a struggle for Jacksonville in past years. Even when they had a lead, usually not a lead this big, but when they have a lead like this, Ryan, I'm sure you've seen this, they played through the lead. They played to win still, not just, we have the lead, let's try to hold out. They kept going.
Absolutely. They put the foot down and played 60 minutes, and it's the best I've seen Jacksonville play in a long time. They looked elite, actually. Their defense looks elite.
Mm-hmm.
The turnovers they're creating is very impressive.
Yeah.
And if they keep creating turnovers and you guys can get Fournette going and get play action off of that, ease Bortles into the game, not make him have to do everything himself, and get him into the flow of the game, get his confidence up, you guys could be a pretty solid team moving forward, I think.
Yeah. I think the key with Jacksonville moving forward is consistency, because last week looked like 2016 all over again, and this week we look like we did in week 1. So which team are we? Are we the team that's been in Houston and London just destroying everybody, or are we the team at home that gets blown out by the Titans in a crucial game that we needed early? So as far as that goes, I'm still looking to see how our head coach, Doug Marrone, if he can get this team to play consistently this well. Like, I don't expect a 44-7 win every week, but I want to see us play better overall games week to week and not have games like we did in Tennessee where we don't even show up to the
even in
same
your losses.
Yeah.
Play better.
Yes.
You know, don't play a brutal brand of football even in your losses.
Right. I mean, you said the word is consistency. Can you play? Because teams lose games that they play well, and it just happens.
Yeah.
But if you play well every week, you're probably going to win more than you lose.
Yeah.
Speaking of, moving forward, they do play the Jets next week. I know they beat the Dolphins this past week in something that if you said you saw that coming, you're a liar.
Yeah.
That's a winnable game for you guys. And then you look at this table. It obviously depends on what the other NFC South teams do, but potentially you can be 3-1. I don't think Jacksonville's been 3-1 for a very long time.
It's been a very long time. We haven't been over 500 since 2011 when we were 1-0 in week 1, and we haven't been over 500 past week 1 since 2010 when we went 8-8 that year. So it's been 7 long years since we've had a winning record past week 1.
So we're still in high school at this point.
Yeah,
God, that's an eternity ago.
Right.
Yeah, so it's definitely it definitely feels good to have a productive football team to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure that's always more fun. Hey, we're also sitting here watching Orlando City happen as we just scored another goal up 2-0 on New England Revolution. Hopefully by the time this airs, I'm not talking about a lead that was blown. But Seb Hines just headed in another one, so go City for the people that also like that. Back to football, though.
Yeah.
We talked about the turnovers. One, of course, interception by former UCF corner A.J. Boye. The last time we talked, we didn't really have enough sample size to talk about how he's doing in Jacksonville. And this, now you got 3 games. Obviously, the pick was amazing. Mm-hmm. How do you think he's settling in so far?
He's played well. Week 1, he struggled a little bit in Houston, going against Hopkins, and then the past 2 weeks he's played decent. And opposite of him, Jalen Ramsey, the Florida State corner we got, they've both played amazing. We have one of the top quarterback tandems in football. And Boye got a pick, Ramsey got a pick. these two guys I expect to force or create a lot of turnovers as the season moves forward. And our defensive line has been ferocious this year. We lead the league. I want to say we lead the league with 13 sacks. I haven't looked that up, so it's probably not accurate, but it's close.
Right. I mean, you got 10 in week 1.
You do lead the league.
Yeah.
I don't know how many you have, but I know Jacksonville does lead the league in sacks.
We got 10 in Houston. I think we got 2 last week and then 2 this week. So we should have around 14 sacks. And Calais Campbell has been an amazing signing for us thus far in this early season. He's had, I think, a sack every game.
Right, yeah, no, it's what you want. If you can get guys that consistently get to the quarterback, I mean, that's where championship-winning football starts with that. And, since I do have you both here, we talked about the defense and the turnovers. You got a UCF corner on one side, you got a Florida State corner on the other. We talked about Dalvin Cook and Jameis Winston already. Now we're talking about the Jags. Jalen Ramsey's got similar to, he's got a year and 3 games in. Ramsey, what do you see from Ramsey so far?
I see Ramsey every time I watch a Jaguar. He flashes everywhere.
Yep.
I see number 20 breaking up passes. I see a dog type mentality, a physical corner. He can hit you.
I forget he's on the field.
Every time I see him, he's flashing all over the place to me.
I forget he's on the field.
Well, that's a good thing too.
That's
a good thing too. But when they do throw it his way, he takes advantage. That was a beautiful pick last week.
Yeah.
He dove.
Both picks were highlight level material.
Absolutely. Jalen Ramsey he already is up there. He could be one of the best corners in the game.
As far as these stats go for guys who look at this stuff, I've just seen it because the Jaguars post this on their Facebook page, but he's the highest rated corner by Pro Football whatever.
Wow.
So thus far this season.
So, and to be that young and to still be pulling off stuff like that, great save by Joe Bendick. But as far as things like that go, you can't get wrapped up in stats too much. You can make stats say whatever you want, really. But it's definitely, things are looking up. Like I said, you got UCF guy on one side, Florida State guy on the other, playing for a Florida team. It is very nice. We talk about this game a little bit more. We cannot talk about this drubbing in London without the performance from Father Time himself, Mercedes Lewis.
Blast from the past, huh?
4 catches, 62 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Who saw this coming?
Maurice Jones-Drew.
He did.
in the pregame show, they asked Brian Billick, the old Ravens coach, and Maurice Jones-Drew, who is their X factors. And Maurice Jones-Drew said, Mercedes Lewis, look for him to get a score this week, and that's going to help lead Jacksonville to a win.
And then he looks down the barrel of the camera.
Yeah. And first drive of the
Sean
game.
Merriman.
Yeah. First drive of the game, Lewis gets his first catch of the year, go right up the field, then he scores a touchdown, and then he gets another one, and then another one. And if you're Maurice Jones-Drew, you should go play the lottery this week.
Not that he needs it, but go for it.
Yeah. Or become a fortune teller, something.
Let's see if he can keep it going.
He had a hat trick, didn't he?
Yeah.
Hat trick in London, which is something that people in London are used to seeing. Not much anymore with Arsenal playing the way they are. But, yeah, it was... what did you think about the crowd? This seemed like one of the better crowds of people, at least early on, obviously, before it became like an ass-kicking. I feel like the crowd was somewhat lively. I know they passed out Jaguar flags to make everyone... Because it's supposed to be a home game for them. That was... terrible. Because you got a guy wearing a Raiders jersey waving a Jags flag, and it was just,
You see all 32 jerseys when you when you look at the crowd in this game. But
which I understand.
I think the people in England are finally learning the game of football a little bit because they don't go absolutely nuts and crazy every time someone punts the ball or kicks a field goal.
That's true. Yeah, they're actually
they're cheering good football.
Yeah. I remember they would cheer the field goals or the punts just because it's what they knew.
Mm-hmm.
I do think and this is Jaguars' 4th year straight in London. So if London's going to adopt a team, I think it's pretty obvious who it should be.
Yeah, I don't want to see Jacksonville go to London at all. But as far as Jacksonville playing in London every year, I don't think it's so much of a home field advantage for us. I think it's a logistical advantage for us now.
Because you know how to make that travel.
Yeah, we've done it 5 years in a row now, and we know what hotels to go to, how to set up our week. And this was Baltimore's very first time going to London, so they didn't know what to expect as far as the week goes, how to set up their schedule and everything. So Jacksonville, that does have an advantage in that sense, I think. as far as playing these games in London.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard it 100 times. Football players, I don't care if it's high school, college, pro, they're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
So the more you can make something as strange as going from Jacksonville, Florida to London, England, make it more of a normal scenario, or at least one that you know how to do, that can only be an advantage.
Yeah, the one thing that hurts us this year is that we're playing this London game in week 3. In years past, we would have a bye week after our London game to be able to come back to America and settle back into this time zone and get everything set for the week after. But this week we do have to go, and this is kind of not fair if you ask me, we have to come back and play on the road in MetLife to face the Jets. Luckily, the Jets aren't very good, though.
Right, so hopefully they are able to do that quick turnaround.
Yeah.
As far as the game being at 9:30, I think people on the West Coast need to stop complaining about waking up early, because it was kind of nice rolling out of bed and already having a game on.
It was kind of nice. I can't lie.
So, I mean, and one thing I think quarterly, they're going to have a few more games throughout the year in London.
Yeah, there's one this week with the Dolphins and somebody.
Right. So, I mean, it's fun. It's a nice little change of pace to me.
It's Dolphins and Saints, I think.
Dolphins, Saints?
Okay.
All right.
And then, obviously, as we touched on it, Blake Bortles, 4 touchdowns. It's not gone, but the talk of the negative talk on him is definitely slowing to not completely dissipate, but it's withering down.
It's not that. The thing with Blake is that if he continued to play bad enough, I understand people wanting to put in a different quarterback.
Yeah.
But our other quarterback is Chad Henne, who has not completed a pass in 4 years, and he even got in this game, throwing the ball too in the fourth quarter when it was well out of reach.
And he still couldn't complete a pass.
No. So as bad as Blake will play this year, the Jaguars, I feel like, should live and die on Blake Bortles' arm this year, no matter what happens, because he gives us the best shot to win. If the season goes south enough to where he's not playing well, I mean, what is Chad Henne going to do for us?
Definitely. Ryan, real quick, Cowboys got any UCF players?
Not that I know of. Not that I'm aware of.
I think it'd be a lot cooler if you did. Anyway, we're out of time, guys. So thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Nightcast. I'm signing off. Phil Nunziata, Sean Kramer, Ryan Mock. We hope we all see you at the game against Memphis this weekend. Hoping for another win. The Knights go 3-0 for the first time in a long time. We'll see you then. Charge on and go Knights.